Dragon Ball fights. There are so many and memorable fights throughout the series, but being so many, there are going to be a couple that of course fly under the radar, and that leads me today to talk about the top 3 underrated fights. Now, usually whenever someone brings up an underrated fight in Dragon Ball, people always seem to go for the Piccolo Jr. vs Goku one, but one tournament fight, and well, one tournament in general that deserves so much more love, is the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, and this tournament had so many underrated fights in general. A matter of fact, I could probably just make a video about that one topic, but the fight I'm going to bring up first is Goku vs Krillin. So the reason this is a great fight is partly because of the build-up, because after all the early episodes of them training together and being rivals together for so many episodes, you actually get to see them fight each other at last and for the first time. And although by this time it is quite clear Goku is stronger and will probably win, you still see Krillin's improvement and is surprisingly quite more competent than he was in the previous tournament. The fight itself was also fast paced with a lot of ducking and blocking, then punches and some kicks thrown in along with some other techniques, and it just keeps going on and on. Unlike with other fights where they will throw hands for a bit then take a break, especially in the previous tournament, and start kind of talking and discussing the technique. Whereas here, the sequences just flow one after another, and it is just so much fun to watch. The animation was also amazing with a lot of gorgeous smears and speed lines, giving it a manga-esque feel, but also further displaying the speed these characters are traveling at. I also love the added effect like the aura around the fists here, and then how Krillin instantly senses Goku behind him and does an after image technique, again showing how much he has progressed in speed to detect his opponents and skill as a fighter in general. And once again, characters are also put in all different positions, with Goku here delivering a variation of kicks and punches, just elevating the fight with originality and interest. I also love the little filler scenes here, which are not only funny, but the characters had so much expression, like with Bulma's and Turtle's eyes half popping out of their head as Launch jumps all over the place with her eyes widened out, expressing rage. Then there is this one frame of Bulma represented by this huge smear with only her eyes and mouth showing, with Oolong giving out this crazy facial expression. Then Bulma kind of chuckles as Launch has this blank facial expression, then Launch raises her fist with her smear trailing behind, and they even went so far to draw Poir with all his fur spiked out just for one frame, just expressing the shock of the character. And then as soon as her hand hits the wall, the camera shakes and there's just this group of speed lines as the others hurry away, with Turtle having a really blank-eyed response, and Launch once again being displayed with all these crazy facial expressions. And honestly, I didn't realize right now until making this video how crazy and expressive the characters were animated here. As a matter of fact, I didn't even plan to discuss that scene, but it was just so well done, I had to give it mention. Now, some more manga features such as speech bubbles and sound effects are also added a little later, giving it a manga-esque feel once again. And the next episode, episode 96, featuring the conclusion of this fight, again doesn't retract in quality in any way. There are still stacks of beautiful animated sequences and cool and unexpected moves, such as this classic one of Goku using a Kamehameha blast to launch himself and hit Krillin, which did give me chills the first time watching, and I still love this move to the day, just because of how unexpected and cool it was in general. But also the facial expressions and how they slow everything down gave weight to this kick, as well as the well placed sound effects. Then comes one of the best sequences. The amount of different moves and sequences all packed into those 10 or so seconds was absolutely amazing, and the sequences followed so well from the previous ones. Also, might I add, the quality of artwork was also quite excellent in this fight, and also the setting of this fight was again an excellent choice, being placed in a late warm afternoon with beautiful orange tones used in the sky, with the color orange actually representing excitement and enthusiasm, which fits well with the theme of this fight. And overall, I think it is possible one of the most underrated fights of all the martial arts tournaments, and possibly the series in general. Number 2.
You'll have to catch me first.
Now, I don't know why, but I don't remember taking too much notice of the fights from 148 to 152 involving Piccolo vs Cell, Cell vs 17, and Android 16 vs Cell. But maybe after doing animation classes at uni, I guess I learned to appreciate and understood the time it takes to animate. And on my current watch through of these episodes, they definitely caught my eye, and I was thinking of actually discussing the Android 17 vs Piccolo fight, but I might save it for a part 2 because I feel like the battle between Android 16 vs Cell deserved a place on this list for sure. Now, why was this a good fight? Well, when watching this for the first time, you really have no idea how strong Android 16 is. There are hardly any indications given, and he has this mystery surrounding him. And with this mystery, you can presume that since he is an earlier model, his power still might be strong, but nowhere near as strong as Android 17 and 18. Especially with Toriyama's villains, he tends to make the smaller ones usually the strongest, and the largest the weakest, like Nappa and Vegeta for example. So it made it just that more surprising and interesting when he was able to hold his own against First Form Cell. And not only that, but Cell wasn't in some league way above Android 16. They were quite similarly matched, and so it made the fight quite unpredictable, and which is somewhat like how the previous fight with Android 17 and Piccolo was in the terms of unpredictability. Now, the start of it, Android 16 launches probably one of the most satisfying punches in Dragon Ball. I love how he just taps Cell on the shoulder and squints his eyes, and just as Cell turns around, 16 plants this clean blow right in his jaw, and seeing this for the first time was quite a surprising but pleasant twist. Also, the sound effects used for the punch gave it just that extra weight, and the camera shaking a bit as Cell flies backwards also sells the severity of this attack. The next sequence that follows was quite entertaining, although they do repeat frames a bit here, but it isn't a huge deal and is not the main focus of the fight I want to talk about. Although the part where they clash heads was cool and really felt like two titans battling each other. Although I quite like the camera pan, which made me feel sorry for whoever had to animate this, taking into account especially having to draw all those spots on Cell. But the following scene of Cell jabbing Android 16 was another great twist, leading the viewer to think that Android 16 was finished, and especially since he didn't move at all for a while, making you think that he was immobilized. But then again, giving this little smirk, and there is this cool sequence of 16 grabbing his tail and chucking Cell into the ground, and might I add, some great voice acting by Damian Clark. The power up he did just before was really chilling. Anyway, they then match speeds. Cell goes to fly away, but then delivers a nice kick into 16, and then he returns with the headbutt. And once again, it seems like 16 is trapped, but delivers another good blow on Cell, then proceeds to rip off his tail, which again was somewhat pleasing after seeing all the countless people he absorbed, and somewhat a shocking surprise, and made it seem like the battle was probably well and truly over. However, until he regenerated, that is. But the best part of this fight, which is what made me put it on the list, is the next episode, 152, which was supervised by Tadayoshi Yamamoru. And although when hearing that name, people may kind of roll their eyes and pass it off, but this is when Yamamoru was in his prime, and this episode provided phenomenal artwork with absolutely beautiful animation and well constructed fight sequences. So it begins with 16 coming at Cell, kind of looking from 16's perspective. Then Cell launches forward while the shot is still looking from Android 16's perspective, making Cell feel like he is launching not only into the character but also the viewer, and might I add, with some lovely artwork once again. Anyway, 16 goes for a kick, Cell leaps over the top of him, then draws back his leg, and just as he goes to launch it at 16, there is this sudden flash of light as Chi spontaneously surrounds it, showing the literal energy behind this kick, with this trail of aura behind, again making it feel like it's launched directly at the viewer's face. 16 then receives his kick head on with the trail of chi still being seen, allowing the viewer to follow the path of the kick has taken. Thereafter, there is this gorgeous shot as Cell launches through the trail of chi still left over, kind of just showing his speed that before the trail has even disappeared, he has managed to leap back and launch forward. Right after Cell lands a clean blow which really had weight to it, especially with the sudden burst of light here. Then 16 slides back, and although it is a small thing, you might notice how 16 is animated to, and very smoothly might I add, to slide over the rock, which was just a cool little extra detail I think that helps sell this scene. But it isn't quite over. Just as you think that, Cell launches forward with a gorgeous bright yellow glowing aura surrounding him. 16 suddenly turns around then prepares to launch his fist at him. Also, the character is given blue tones as the light seeps through his body with a purple background instead of the ocean backdrop, just drawing you into this one scene and grabbing your focus with the sudden shift of colours. Then he launches his fist with a heap of speed lines trailing it, and a bunch of white shock lines surround Android 16's fist with saliva going everywhere, with thereafter a really expressive piece of Cell with his face all screwed up, with the skin still folded inwards, with additional lines around 16's fist showing that even after hitting Cell, it is still plummeting forward at a crazy speed, also giving another glimpse at how heavy and strong this attack was. Then there is this cool move as 16 manages to lunge forward and grab his fist mid-air, all while Cell is still flying back. Then right after that smacks him down into the ground, and if that wasn't enough, he grabs him and drives him directly into the ground with some more gorgeous facial expressions as he yells, drawn perfectly once again, with all this line variation giving that bit of extra depth, as well as the added tones of shading and their placement, which is not something seen too often throughout the anime, unless it's someone like Maeda for example. Then thereafter there is a great panning shot with speed lines adding to the ferocity of this scene. And to finish it off, 16 does a quite unusual move, taking off his arms to fire Ki Blast. Solid black and yellow tones are used for all the surrounding characters and scenery, again giving impact to the scene, showing that coming from the attack is so large, the entire landscape is draped in these tones, and the beams have burrowed so far into the earth they have started to break forth and come out of the surface, selling the severity of this attack and giving the illusion that this battle is probably won after something so devastating. Now, wrapping up that fight, one extra thing I would like to add is his attacks such as launching the fist and having to take off his arms to fire Ki Blast attacks was kind of a throwback to early Dragon Ball with the older model androids such as Major Metallotron, who could launch his fist, or Mercenary Tao, who of course wasn't created by Dr. Gero but also had a similar move by having to take off his hand to fire a large-scale Ki Blast attack, making Android 16's technology and techniques seem somewhat dated and old-fashioned at first, and therefore possibly weak, when in contrast, even though he didn't defeat Cell, they were still actually quite devastating and gave an element of surprise to his attacks and offensive. Tien Shinhan vs Yamcha. Now, I was going to put this one first, but I thought that I might turn people off when I said Yamcha vs Tien, but in all seriousness, after reviewing this fight once more, if there was a title for the most underrated fight in the entirety of Dragon Ball, it would definitely be this one. The build up to this fight was excellent, the animation was excellent, and the ending only further built the tension for the climax of this entire tournament. But let's start with why the build-up was so good. Well, first, there was already this tension amongst the two schools. Tien is also quite a mystery at this time. You have previously seen his quick bout with Goku, however Goku didn't put up much of a fight since he was hungry, and you've only seen a brief glimpse of his power during the preliminary rounds. So getting to see him in a proper fight at last was quite exciting and intriguing. Also, as I said, there was a rivalry between the two schools which had been constantly building throughout the earlier episodes bit by bit, but particularly between Tien and Yamcha, and with Master Shen's cockiness in his pupil's success, it made it all the more thrilling to see this battle between the two schools at last. So the fight begins with Yamcha launching into the fight with a nice backdrop and some quite different martial arts moves being used by Tien, with a lot of going back and forth between the two, but then things change up a bit and Yamcha does this kick from the sky, and Tien tenses up and takes a hit full on with some impact lines drawn, giving a manga-esque feel, and as Yamcha goes backwards, Tien launches a beautiful kick right at the camera, And just as he gets in front of Yamcha, he does this amazing move, leaping over the top of Yamcha just at the last second. However, Yamcha quickly returns to the block and flips away. The two then exchange some blows with a mix of blocking and punching, then a swift knee to the stomach. Yamcha then goes on the offensive, surprisingly pushing back Tien. However, Tien tries to push back and gets a swift kick right in the stomach, and there are some further scenes again with some different fighting techniques being used to what we had seen in the series so far, and the battle in general, from memory, was some of the quickest action we had seen so far yet in the story. Then, just before the episode ends, Yamcha and Tien pose in some cool looking stances, which I did try to find the actual names they were based off, but I couldn't. However, in the next episode preview, Yamcha is in a kung fu pose of the monkey, I believe. But anyway, Yamcha uses a variation of one of his classic moves, now named the Wolf Fang Blowing Wind technique, or Neo Wolf Fang Fist, at Tien, which really felt ferocious and freaky the way they showed his fist as the head of a wolf for quick glimpses, instead of just behind the body as they had done previous. Then as he leaves, a wolf is shown again, which really sold the ferocity of this attack, along with the sound effects of a wolf yelling behind it. And the fighting picks up a whole new pace with little flashes of yellow light being shown all around the characters, now giving a visual representation that the fight is way more serious and energetic than even before, with the music also sounding a bit darker and a heap of speed lines being drawn everywhere, once again showing that the pace of the fight has well increased. Then after exchanging a heap of blows, Tien goes for this punch, but Yamcha suddenly flips back, which was animated really well, then lunges forward and only the head of a wolf is shown, creating surprise and shock, with also the music suddenly stopping as soon as he grabs Tien's arm, drawing focus into this one scene. Yamcha then quickly goes up Tien's arms, freakishly like an animal. Then as he lunges at his head, the camera switches to first person from Tien's perspective, and all you see is the head of a wolf suddenly just leaping straight at the viewer with no warning, and the mouth just completely engulfs the camera shot with drool just hanging from its teeth, really creating a surprising and shocking twist to this attack, making it also look just the more cooler. However, he only manages to cut his cheek. Then Tien manages to cut only Yamcha's cheek as he dodges away. Then one of the coolest cheek cutting sequences out of any anime follows, with just a line of blood being shown, and then as it splits into two halves, they then appear on both Yamcha and Tien's face, with both their faces completely blanked out, and with both characters staring directly at each other. Then as the blood drips, the shot zooms out, and the dark blue tones suddenly disappear, and the normal colors are used again, taking you back into the world, and then they are just glaring at each other in anticipation. Then they absolutely pummel each other, and Oolong is once again shown with some crazy facial expressions. Yamcha is also drawn with a heap of grazes and blood still flowing from his cheek, while Tien not so much, subtly just showing who has the advantage in this fight. Yamcha then launches from the sky once again, launching a huge flurry of kicks into Tien, animated really smoothly. Anyway, before Tien even has a chance to think, he leaps back behind him and launches forward with a quick little flash of yellow for one frame and small bits of tile flying up, then comes around and lands an excellent kick, sending Tien flying back with sort of a fisheye lens, along with some slow motion and eerie sound effects as he bounces off the ground. And Oolong proceeds to get choked out again. Then after exchanging words, Yamcha tries the same attack again, and there is this lovely animated shot panning around Tien with a blanked out background with only the ring and him showing. Tien then channels his energy, it seems with some glowing aura surrounding his fist, and tenses up his body with red and pinkish tones being used, and a heap of pen strokes also used for shading and extra detail, just like the manga. However, Yamcha's attack is ineffective, and they soon launch at each other again with absolute brutality like before, and also honorable mention for the scene of Oolong getting abused once again with his face folding in like a cushion, and some really expressive facial expressions once again. Then nearing the climax of the fight and one of my favourite scenes, Yamcha prepares to do a Kamehameha for the first time.
Do it. At your own risk.
turned it around!
On us!
Okay, how did he do that? Roshi's been holding out on me.
Look out!
The music completely cuts out, and all you can hear is the echo from Yamcha as he prepares the attack. Thereafter, there is this impactful frame as Yamcha yells with speed lines protruding forth outwards, giving this gritty feel of the manga while also helping further the intensity of the scene. Then as the Kamehameha wave hurdles at Tien, he just stands there completely unfazed, and the blue then slowly engulfs his face, and the style shifts away from the traditional cell shading and goes towards tones being blended, kind of like watercolor. Then one of Yamcha drawn beautifully, and a quick panning shot freezing the moment in time with all these speed lines absolutely everywhere. Then just before the attack hits him, Tien chucks some sick looking hand signs or something similar, gathering energy. Then suddenly this yellow aura glows around him as he gathers his chi, giving a really mystical feel to this move, but also something that wasn't that common to see, if hardly at all, in early Dragon Ball. He then seems to channel his chi into his hands and deflects it with just his hand. Then it hurtles back to Yamcha with this glowing blue and white light encompassing the entire ring still, and at the last moment Yamcha leaps up and there is this gorgeous explosion with the sky being given a deep orange tone and really bright and vibrant yellows being used for the explosion, and also a quick cameo of Dr. Slump it seems, then Gatchin and Yamabuki Sensei below. All the meanwhile, Tien has leaped up behind Yamcha, then launches a devastating kick right into Yamcha, and all you see is this shot as Yamcha's body drops to the ring and just bounces off the ring in slow motion, completely whited out, showing how devastating this attack was. Then just as you think it's over, Tien surprisingly and shockingly breaks Yamcha's leg, and there is this eerie sound effect once again being played. And blue tones are used for a quick instant, drawing you into what's happening. The shock of several of the cast is shown with limited tones used for each frame, distinguishing them each from the other, and also creating a further dramatic effect with the background. The music also cuts at this point, and with this brutal end to the fight, it helps create severe animosity against Tien and the Crane School by the Turtle House, only building the already high tension between the two schools even further and making the upcoming fights, especially between Goku and Tien, all the more thrilling. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely enjoyed making it and talking about these fights which don't get the spotlight they deserve, and I did intend to actually make it 5 fights. However, for the sake of time and not dragging out this video to 20 minutes, which it actually seems it ended up anyway, I decided to cut it down, especially when in the drafting stage of this video. Those 3 fights are what kind of came to mind and were what I really wanted to discuss, and I guess anything else kind of seemed second best, so I decided to keep it strictly to those 3, and in the future I might do a part 2, but in the meantime I've got some other videos planned, such as redesigning Kaba and another video discussing why does Yamamoru's work feel stiff, which I've been planning to do for ages, I think like since May. So I plan to try and do that soon and upload some old speed drawings. So yeah, thanks once again for checking out this video, and if you want to see more content, subscribe and I'll see you soon.